We are rolling through the Wednesday edition of the program. I hope all of you are having a good start to your morning as we roll towards the conference championship games, as well as additional games outside of those conference championship games. On Saturday, we are inching closer and closer to knowing who the four college football playoff teams are. And the next to last college football playoff rankings came out last night. I'll tell you what we learned and answer any questions there may be about what needs to happen in order for your favored school or a team that you bet on, or just simply someone who is a college football fan out there, what needs to happen in order for the four teams to eventually make the playoff. On top of that, today is a day that I think is sneaking up on a lot of people, because usually it's turned into a pretty big, exciting day. That is college football signing day. Now, the last few years, I'm not even sure how many we've had. Maybe this is the third or fourth year, maybe the fourth year of an early signing period. It used to be in February, you would have one single college football national signing day, and it was a big festivity, big festival. Everybody was excited to see where some of the top players would be electing to go. Now what we are doing is we have split those days up into two different days, and around 70% of the top players typically are signing here on the early signing day. So this is a big day for many different coaches and for many different programs as we continue to move through the sports calendar. Everything's kind of out of whack because usually we're in a holding pattern in college football at this point in the season. We're a couple of weeks behind where we would ordinarily be. And so we've got the college football playoff rankings that will come out on Sunday of this week, right after we have the title games on Saturday. And we've got signing day going on right in the middle of for many teams, still a week where they are going to play. So what did we learn from the college football playoff rankings? It is an intriguing question. First of all, Alabama is in. The University of Alabama is in, and they are trending towards being the most deserving of any conference champion that I can think of, because they have already won 10 games, and most of the time that is impossible, because you never actually play more than 9 conference games in the SEC ever. You have 8 conference games generally, and then you have the conference championship. Alabama's already won 10, and they are favored around a 17-point favorite over the Florida Gators to win the SEC, which if they did would make them 11-0 and potentially set a mark for SEC dominance that no one would ever be able to equal again. I think you have to give a lot of props to the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 for what they have been capable of. Not only are they going to crown unquestioned champions of their conference, but they also are going to do it while playing in front of fans, something that all the Corona bros out there who spent months battling with me said was impossible, and they're going to do it without a single negative consequence from a positive COVID test from any coach or any player out there. If you remember, all the Corona bros were saying, well, if we play college football, a lot of players are going to die. It hasn't happened at all. In fact, come Saturday, most of the teams will complete their conference, and we will have had virtually no issue at all, almost no players even requiring any hospitalization at all. So it's been a tremendous success across all of college football, but in particular in those 3 conferences which started playing in September as opposed to waiting till October like the Big Ten did, or until November, God forbid, like the Pac-12 did. So Alabama is in. The question is, where are the Tide going to be seated? And not only is Alabama into the playoff, they are also really trending towards being the overall number 1 seed, which could be significant because the matchup between 2 and 3 might be a lot more difficult than the matchup between 1 and 4. In other words, there may be a big drop-off before we get to who the 4th team is to make the college football playoff. Notre Dame appears also to be comfortably into the college football playoff, regardless of what happens in the ACC championship game. If Notre Dame wins and beats Clemson, they will knock the Tigers out of the playoff. But if Notre Dame loses, as long as they lose in a decent situation without getting blown out, they will be fine. And also, as long as Ian Book, let's say, stays healthy, the Irish appear to be very good shape to be in the college football playoff as well. Clemson, simple. If they beat Notre Dame, they are going to be in the college football playoff. The ACC would get 2. Those 3 are pretty easy. Then we get to Ohio State, who the committee seems to really like and want to reward. And if Ohio State beats Northwestern to get to 6-0, then the Buckeyes look like they would be comfortably in. And if that happened, then I believe what should happen is that Ohio State will play against Clemson and Notre Dame would drop down to the 4, assuming they lost to Clemson, and Notre Dame would play against Alabama. Now, some of you are going to say, why would that happen? And I would tell you, because it makes television a lot of money. Really, this is the essence of the college football playoff. It's a television show. And the best matchups make the most money. And so Alabama against Notre Dame and Clemson against Ohio State would be the best setup, because otherwise you end up with Clemson and Notre Dame playing each other for a 3rd time since November, which nobody is going to want, and playing again 13 days from now on January 1st. All right, what about the other teams that are out there? Texas A&M plays against Tennessee this weekend. I believe Texas A&M could find their way into the college football playoff. Certainly, if Notre Dame wins or Ohio State loses, then Texas A&M is in easily. Iowa State has fought themselves all the way up to number 6. Here's a crazy thought for you. If Iowa State had not played against Louisiana, if they hadn't played any out-of-conference games, then Iowa State would be poised to make the college football playoff if they beat Oklahoma. Now, to be fair, Oklahoma is around a 5-point favorite, and Iowa State hasn't won a conference championship since 1915. So this is one of those situations where if you're a college football fan, I think you should be rooting for Iowa State against Oklahoma on Saturday. Finally, Florida is now the 7th best team according to the college football playoff rankings, even coming out of that LSU loss. This suggests that if Florida were to beat Alabama, the Gators could still end up in the college football playoff and leap into the top 4 by virtue of a 9-2 SEC schedule that would include a win over number 1 Alabama. I don't think the Florida Gators are going to beat Alabama, but those are effectively the 7 teams that are in any way alive for the college football playoff. Cincinnati has no chance. No other team that is out there. USC in the Pac-12. Now, here is my big issue in general with the college football playoff committee. We are using very often our expectations of who is going to be good as justification for who is actually good. And that is particularly the case with teams like Ohio State and with teams like USC. We expected for USC not to be very good, so the fact that they are 5-0 is baked into the equation. We expected for Ohio State to be good, so even though they're 5-0, they're still in the mix. For years, the College Football Playoff Committee has told us the number of games matter in terms of assessing who the best teams are. Now, with Ohio State poised to go 6-0, they are going to say effectively the number of games you play doesn't matter. If I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan out there right now, ever since the college football playoff began, Notre Dame has had it held against them that they don't play a conference championship game. And the College Football Playoff Committee has said 12 games is not as impressive as playing 13 games and winning a conference championship. Now the College Football Playoff Committee is going to tell us about Ohio State. We trust our eyes. We know that Ohio State is one of the 4 best playoff teams in the country. Well, how do you know that? Because we trust our eyes. The issue in general, I would say, with the College Football Playoff Committee is there are so many different rationales that you can adopt in order to make the argument that you're in favor of, that ultimately it comes down to what choice do you want to make? Who to you are the 4 best teams, because you can find whatever criteria you want to justify the decision that you're going to make. And so, if you look at the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, that has been my biggest issue for a long time. Now, I think the committee's done a pretty good job in general, but effectively, this is just a poll, right? It's just like the AP poll. It's just like the USA Today coaches poll. It is a collection of 12 opinions as they rank them to be the best teams. And that's why I've been arguing for years. If you go back and read, I thought the BCS worked fine. And that required that we balance out all these different metrics, and the teams that were produced by the BCS rankings were historically, typically, the best 2. But the bigger the playoff gets, the less significant the issue at play is. I think there is some value in having a set metric by which we decide who the 4 playoff teams are, as opposed to just looking at the results and then deciding on how we're going to vote. But I have been telling you this for several weeks now. By far the most likely outcome, and I continue to believe it's the most likely outcome, is Alabama is going to be the number 1 seed. I think that Clemson and Notre Dame are going to be the 2 and the 3. I think Clemson probably is going to be the 2. I think Notre Dame's going to end up being the 3. Sorry, Clemson's going to be the 2. Ohio State is going to be the 3. And Notre Dame is going to be your 4. And we're going to set up Alabama against Notre Dame and Clemson against Ohio State. That is, I think, substantially the favorites to end up being the college football playoff. Now, could we have some upsets? Yes. If Alabama loses to Florida, the College Football Playoff Committee is setting the table for the Florida Gators to potentially get in at 9-2. If that happened, then it would bump Ohio State out of the college football playoff. If Ohio State loses to Northwestern, then Texas A&M, presuming they beat Tennessee, would likely be in. And if Clemson loses to Notre Dame, then that opens the door potentially for 2 teams to get in, depending on how this all shakes out. So I'll bring in the crew here in a moment. I'll open up the phone lines for anybody who has questions, 877-996-6369, as we are getting poised for the games on Saturday. Let me run through them one more time here and break it down for you. If you are in favor of chaos, then you want as many favorites as possible to lose. If you're in favor of simplicity, then you want the top teams to go out there and to win. The chaos scenario would require Florida to beat Alabama. It would require Clemson to beat Notre Dame. And it would require I'd probably say Notre Dame should beat Clemson. That would be a little bit more chaotic. And it would require Northwestern to beat Ohio State. If that happened, then you would have 2 set teams in the chaos theory, Alabama and Notre Dame. They would be your 1 and 2. I think it's possible that you then end up with Florida and with Texas A&M with 3 different SEC teams in the college football playoff. Again, if Northwestern won and if Florida won and if Notre Dame won, That would be all three underdogs winning in the major conference championships. And then Iowa State could pull off an upset, and there'd be some moving parts there that would be pretty intriguing to follow before all was said and done. But that is the college football playoff. Any questions from any of you guys in the crew about the way this thing is shaking out? I'll start with you, Danny G.
I was going to ask you about upsets, but you addressed that. So I'll ask this question. As a casual football fan, and you do a viewer's guide every week for the NFL, and you also pick one college game. If you had to pick two of these championship games, because I probably average watching 2 college games a week, which 2 of these would you pick?
I'm not sure that it's going to matter for the college football playoff at all, but I think Iowa State against Oklahoma is probably the best conference championship game in the Power 5 that's out there. I'm more interested in watching that than USC Oregon. I'm more interested in watching that than Alabama, Florida, than Ohio State Northwestern, and frankly, than Clemson and Notre Dame. So it's the least significant, but I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I don't think there's a lot that separates these two teams. I think it'll be a very fun one. So that would be one of my choices. And then I think I'd probably go Clemson-Notre Dame because it's a rematch. I'm curious to see how Notre Dame does against Trevor Lawrence playing. Last time, remember, Trevor Lawrence was out. Notre Dame won in double overtime. I think Alabama's going to handle Florida pretty easily, and I think Ohio State's going to handle Northwestern pretty easily. So if I were ranking the championships, and sorry to Pac-12 fans, I'll watch it probably some because it's Friday night and there's not a ton going on oftentimes in my life on Friday night. So there's probably a good chance that I'll be curled up in front of the television watching Oregon play against USC at some point in time on Friday night. But I don't even consider that to be a conference championship game because it's possible that Oregon could win the Pac-12 title at 4-2, and I just think that's laughable. I just think it's crazy, and it's possible that USC is going to go 6-0 and win the Pac-12 title, and they're going to do it by beating an Oregon team that ends up with a record of 3-3. To me, it's just not a conference championship game. What about you, Dub? What stands out to you as the college football playoff rankings are out there?
I mean, nothing really stands out in particular. It's kind of what happened was pretty much expected in my book. I am curious about Clemson Notre Dame Part 2 because in that first matchup, the Clemson's backup DJ, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name.
Lele, yes.
So, yeah, whatever it is.
Gesundheit.
Yes, he played unbelievable. I mean, he had over 400 yards passing, and I'm not sure that – I mean, how much better would Trevor Lawrence have done in that matchup? So
the defense was the issue, not the offense.
Absolutely. Notre Dame moved up and down the field with ease, putting up 47 points. So to me, I don't really understand why it's a 10.5-point spread, to be honest with you, because in that first matchup, I'm not sure that game would have ended differently had Trevor Lawrence played.
I think that's fair. A lot of people just reflectively point out that Trevor Lawrence wasn't there and refuse to look at the actual data and recognize that the backup quarterback for Clemson, DJ Uiagalelei, whose last name I can't pronounce yet, but I promise eventually I will, he put up numbers that are as good or better than I think anybody could have hoped that Trevor Lawrence would put up. So I think that's a very fair question. Eddie Garcia, what about you stood out as we come into college football conference championship weekend?
Well, I think like Dub, my concern or question is around Clemson.
Yeah.
If they lose a similar game to the first matchup that they had with Notre Dame, a very close competitive game that comes down to the wire, wouldn't they be more deserving of still getting in than Ohio State?
I think the Ohio State debate is going to end up being a bigger one than people want to acknowledge. Because right now, to me, Ohio State going 6-0 for Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Florida, and also I think you can toss Iowa State in that mix, they're all playing 11 games. That's a huge difference in a season analysis to play 11 games compared to 6. And people are just tossing USC completely out of all discussion, predicated on the fact that they've only played 5 games. USC has played the same number of games as Ohio State. And by the way, It's not like Ohio State has played a ton of great teams. They've played one team with a winning record, and they won that game by 7 points. So, again, this comes back to because of the way the Big Ten set their season in motion, it was clear that Ohio State was not going to be able to be judged under the same metrics as every other team in a Power 5 conference that we are considering to make the college football playoff. And so as a result, I think there are a lot of people out there having the same question. Why are we considering Ohio State to be the functional equivalent of all these teams that have played 11 games? And I think it's a fair question. And ultimately, I come back to the college football playoff is a TV show, and there is a belief that without a Big Ten team in it, the television ratings are going to be a lot lower. Because I'm with many people out there, 11 games versus 6, and I think until you actually look at all the outcome, right, it's possible that there is nobody else that really makes a strong claim for themselves in the college football playoff, by which I mean it's possible Alabama wins, it's possible Notre Dame wins, and there's a couple of spots that are potentially open. But Florida, to me, is the intriguing question, right? 9-2 Florida if they beat Alabama. I think 9-2 Florida would have a more impressive resume than 6-0 Ohio State would. They would have beaten a really good Georgia team that is in the top 8. They would have beaten the overall number 1 team in the college football playoff rankings. Florida would have 2 good wins. One of their losses, close game against Texas A&M. Their other loss, if you watch that game against LSU, was sort of a carnival of absurdity, and they didn't have their best player, Kyle Pitts, in. Well, if people are going to look around and say, well, Notre Dame won, but Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing, Kyle Pitts being out and Florida losing a close game against LSU, kind of a factor of worthy of analysis, I think. Roberto, anything else that jumps out to you?
So Clemson. If Clemson loses, you think they're out of the playoff, or Texas A&M jumps them there?
Yeah, I think I think Texas A&M at 8-1 would have a very good claim to get in that scenario. Yeah, I do.